Good morning. I call the meeting of the National Board of Assessors to order at 9 a.m. on Thursday, April 21st, 2022. Let the record show that present from the board are Robert Early and myself, Daniel Hansberry. Paul Bergeron has a commitment with the state legislature this morning, so he will not be joining us. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the public minutes from the Board of Assessors meeting held on Thursday, April 7th, 2022, accept them and place them on file?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the non-public meeting minutes from the board meeting of Thursday, April 7th, 2022, accept them and place them on file?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. At this time, I will recognize Richard Vincent, the department head for assessing, who has a report for us from Vision Government Solutions.
Good morning. That is an error on the agenda. That was the report from Vision that was presented at the last meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do you have anything further for us, Mr. Vincent?
No, nothing further.
All right. So at this time, we will move on to new business, and I will recognize Mr. Turgis, who has an in-house correction for us. Good morning, Mr. Turgis.
Good morning. So what I have for you, the first one is 1 Main Street, and it's actually an abatement, and it was untimely filed. Our office did not receive it until March 31st.
And just for the public's information, it has to be filed by March 1st. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any questions
No
for Mr.
questions.
Turgis? So is there a motion to deny the abatement for the property located at 1 Main Street?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Turgis?
The second one I have is 8 Auburn Street, and it is the same thing, same owner, untimely filed. Again, received it on March 31st, due by March 1st.
Any questions for Mr. Turgis?
No.
Hey, is there a motion to deny the abatement for the property located at 8 Auburn Street?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Does that conclude your report?
That does.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
You're welcome. At this time, I will recognize Ms. Zins, who has a report for us relative to blind and solar exemptions and veterans, disabled veterans, all veterans credits. Ms. Zins?
Good morning, Board. So I am presenting veterans credits, disabled veterans credits, all veterans credits, and solar exemptions, along with blind exemption. The first, you want to do each category one by one? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Number 1 is the veterans credits, and those are with a recommendation of approval. Do you want me to list account by account, or
No,
you see
no,
it
it's not
as is?
necessary.
Okay.
And you can get both the veterans credit and the disabled veterans credit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then one question under the veterans credit, the very last property, are we sure that there isn't a R in there after the first letter? Is it B, should it be BR?
I think you might be right. I think I was on that street the other day.
I'll run anywhere, Dan, come on. Open up past the leg for 20 minutes, that's how long you do.
I just need to see if they're receiving a couple. Hold on for a moment.
Do we have a way of getting that weather thing off the Or is that back there?
And you are correct.
Oh.
It is Brand
Okay.
Drive.
All right.
I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. No need to.
It's
Sweet.
BR.
Thank
B,
you.
yes, we are, yeah,
The account number is correct.
okay. All right. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the Veterans Credits Standard as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Ms. Zins?
Okay, and the second category are the disabled veterans credits with a recommendation of approval.
Okay, and on the fourth one down, did we get the decision letter?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so
Yep.
we can delete that then, right?
Yep.
Okay,
The difficulty with that is the veterans are behind about 4 to 6 months. But we are seeing letters coming in, and if they call our archivist or the Veterans Council, they're able to get a generated letter quicker.
thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the disabled veterans credits as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the disabled veterans credits as presented per the attached list signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Ms. Zins?
Okay, and the third category are the all veterans credit with a recommendation for approval.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Zins? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the all veterans credits as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Ms. Zins?
Okay, and the fourth one I had in there, but we had thought we were gonna have a resident, but he ended up pulling out, so that is, there's none there.
Okay.
The fifth category are the solar exemption with a recommendation for approval.
And the solar exemption, that's based on what, how many square feet of solar panels you have? Is that correct? Is that how that goes?
And I will answer, but Rick will clarify, I think in a better, do you want to take it from there, or?
It's not the square footage, it's the number of panels,
Number of panels.
a lot of different factors. But it's mainly the number of panels and what those generate.
Does, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, does each new owner have to apply? It's not, once it's approved, it's not passed on with the,
So we went round and round with that, because we do have quite a great deal of conveyances and that have continued to receive the, keep the solar on their homes when they purchase it, and it's part of the purchase. But because the application was filled out by the previous owner, in this office, we felt, that the city should have them reapply. And it's very simple. As soon as we see the conveyance, we send a letter to the new owner. We give them so many days to fill out. We actually even fill the application out for them. If we don't have the full amount of like a contract or an invoice, we ask for that to come in as well. 9 out of 10 times, these solar panels have been on this home for many, many years. I will say that as soon as people receive them, they probably trash it, not knowing
Yeah.
what it is. So we send out a second letter, and then we try to look at the PA 34 and see if we can get a phone number for them. And then eventually, they come in and sign it, because they do want that exemption.
see, on one hand, I think it's a lot of extra work. On the other hand, what would happen if someone came in and decided to not use the solar? I don't know why, but if say it needed a repair and they didn't want to spend the money to repair it, if we did just say, okay, once it's approved forever, till we hear otherwise, that could happen. So I don't know which is the lesser of evils.
So we also have somebody go out and confirm that the panels are in fact still there, if they've been added, if some have been taken away. So we do have a schedule of,
Okay.
of that.
All right. I have no other questions.
So is there a motion to approve the solar exemptions as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Ms. Sins?
Okay, and the last is blind with a recommendation of approval. I want to emphasize, this is, again, the Bureau of Education, just like the veterans, they're short-staffed, so they're understaffed, they are overloaded with work, and it's taking a long time for the residents to get the letters. But unfortunately, we do have to have the letters and the application by April 15th. So we do have two in this situation, but there is one that will have to wait till next year.
And that's because the State Department of Education is understaffed?
Yeah.
Department of Education?
Because they have, yeah, the Department of Education, Blind Services, they have to go through the whole motion of getting the report from their doctor, as well as doing their own exam, and there's other things. But I was just pointing out that they are understaffed, and the letters are, in this particular case, the process wasn't complete. We weren't just waiting for the letter. The process wasn't complete.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the blind exemptions as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Does that conclude your report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Until non-public.
Okay. All right, unfinished business, there is none. Public comment. I just remind the members of the public that you are limited to 5 minutes. And I would also remind them that remarks shall be civil, rude or profane remarks are prohibited. The presiding officer has authority to terminate the remarks of any speaker when such remarks do not adhere to those rules or other applicable law. At this time, is there any member of the public who would care to address the board? Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Lori Ortolano, 41 Berkeley Street. Couple of things. I did just ask Jen if in the packets that you receive, the board packets you receive, if the non-public meeting minutes are part of that packet. So you get a set of public meeting minutes and a set of non-public meeting minutes. Do you get your non-public meeting minutes for every meeting, marked non-public?
As I said, it's a public comment period. It's not a question and answer period.
Well, I know, but behind me is Rick Vincent to answer it, so and he couldn't do that, so I'm here because the meeting was starting. And it's a very simple question on a packet thing. But let me go on and explain what my concerns are. The state changed the law in January regarding documented sealed minutes. And the assessing office is not handling the documentation for those sealed minutes correctly. I went down there to get the list, and I actually got it from the Board of Aldermen, the DPW, and the Board of Assessors, because they have non-public meetings that have happened since January 1st that have to be documented in a list. Before I requested those, 5 weeks, I wrote 5 weeks ago to the legal office, and I said, I'm going to request a quarterly report of sealed minutes. The law changed every quarter. And I want you to know by the end of March 31st, I'm going to request the list for January, February, March. And I gave them a heads up because I wanted them to let everyone know this was coming. Now, my presumption was the legal office and the clerk's office would be responsible for alerting all of the different departments or divisions in City Hall of this law change. So it seemed to me the reasonable place to go, just a guess. So I collect all three sets, and all three groups are doing it differently. The one that's most accurate is DPW. They're doing pretty well. Your group is terrible, and the Board of Aldermen is incorrect as well. Okay, so the law specifically lists 6 items that have to be in the table for sealed minutes. The list I got had 4 columns, not 6. And it's all scrambled for when you're unsealing. The other thing that seems to escape this city is that non-public meeting minutes are always supposed to be separate, meaning they get reviewed separately, they get approved separately, and they get posted separately. Coming from Litchfield, this is the way we always did it. And when I was a school board member and a budget committee member, this is how we did it for 8 years. And I went on the Litchfield site and I can click on non-public meeting minutes. The problem I have with the way you're doing it is that what Jen explained to me was that you're folding, when you decide, you started unsealing minutes, which is a good thing. And you know, this law change was in part because of how Nashua was operating. I went up and testified that the Board of Assessors spends 3/4 of its time in non-public session. And you never unseal anything. And it never used to be like that until I started coming. You would put out and disclose the settlement agreements that were public record when you agreed to them in your meeting. You'd come out and disclose, here are the settlements we took care of. And then all of a sudden it became totally private material that was sealed, even though they'd go to the clerk's office. But again, you weren't dating your settlements, so I couldn't tell which ones were handled in which meetings. They'd go to the clerk's office into a pile of 100. They'd be scrambled in there. So as a citizen, I'd have to go through all 100. So I decided I would start writing right-to-knows to Rick Vincent after each meeting to try and get what you covered. Total pain in the rear end and ridiculous. Okay? And Celia Leonard was the big obstructionist to this. My repeated communications to her as an attorney to unseal these things and to handle it correctly was met with a screw you. And I'm tired of that. Now, Jen Zinn really upset me a couple days ago because she tried to tell me we're doing it right. And if you have a problem, Laura, go to legal. Where do you get off telling me to go to legal? When legal said every department is responsible for their records, you go to the department. And you know I can't go to legal. I can't knock on the door, I can't get an appointment, and I rarely get a response. Despite the fact that they're losing on most of their litigation with me, they treat me like trash. I shouldn't have to go to legal to get the list done correctly. I should be able to work with somebody down in assessing to form your list correctly. I'm bringing all of this data to a state meeting on Saturday to look at all of these people are combining in right to know what their municipalities are doing so we can start to track how this is working and whether it's meeting the purpose of getting minutes unsealed. But the other reason, what you're doing here is when you unseal minutes, she showed me that on February 17th, you unsealed, you had a meeting and you approved settlements. And on March 17th, you unsealed those minutes. And I said, well, where's the record? She said, it's been put into the February 17th meeting minutes. Well, we looked, and they weren't there. But more importantly, those meeting minutes were approved by you in the meeting, the next meeting in early March, they were approved by you. You shouldn't go back and add whatever you want to a set of minutes that's already been approved. That's why most cities or most municipalities treat their non-public separate. Because if you unseal, you've taken an action at a different date and time that were not part of the original minutes. The other thing is the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I will send the documents to you, produces good technical and legal papers on non-public meeting minutes. And their recommendation, and they said this in a paragraph, Cordell Johnston, non-public meeting minutes should always be separate. And their comment was, it goes without say. Well, it doesn't go without say, because we're combining them. And when you fold them into records that already exist, the public has no idea when you're unsealing. We have no idea what's really happening. You know, it's so much easier if the agenda, if the city website is set up with Board of Assessor regular meeting minutes, non-public meeting minutes, just like they do in Litchfield. Do it that way, because actually that's what the law is telling you to do. But also meet the requirements about what the law says with the table. That whole process is set up for sealed minutes, just sealed minutes, non-public. If you run a non-public session and they're not sealed, they come out in 72 hours anyway. We don't want to track what's not sealed. We want to track what's sealed. You guys have historically sealed everything. Just do the table correctly.
It's time, Mrs. Earl, I'll give you a minute or two extra.
Okay. Please follow the law. I really don't feel like filing another lawsuit.
I will answer your question. I didn't want to get into a question and answer session, but we do get the non-public meeting minutes in every meeting packet. So from the previous meeting, the non-public minutes are included for the current meeting. So the minutes from the meeting in early April, from April 7th, are included in this packet. Well, we acted on them, so I mean, it's obvious that they're included.
Well, it isn't, because on my boards, we always acted on the public meeting minutes and the non-public. We took a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes, because they're separate, because the state recommends, it says it's obvious they should be separate.
Isn't that what we're
But
doing?
we've been doing that, that's what we've been doing right along.
You don't distinguish public from non-public.
No, we do.
Yes, we do.
We absolutely do. We take a
We
motion
have
on
two
the
sets of
public.
minutes, non-public and public. And we go back and we've been reviewing the non-public minutes to let them, we redact some things, and then once we've done that, they become public, but they're still the non-public minutes of that meeting.
Didn't you just make a motion 5 minutes ago to accept the minutes?
To accept them, but we haven't redacted, we haven't gone through them to release them. We're approving them for us. We're not releasing them to the public yet until we have the time. We're doing last meeting non-public minutes. We're going to redact them today and then let them go out. They're not going to become public meeting minutes. They're going to become non-public minutes that have been released.
Okay, I can tell you a million reasons why what you just said is wrong, and I can't even explain it.
In what way is it wrong?
You're wrong. And I'll
I know that, but just tell me in what way?
You cannot, first of all, minutes aren't always released unless they're sealed. It doesn't matter, remember, draft minutes are always available to the public. Within
Of the
5 days, draft
public,
minutes are
of the
available.
public meeting,
Of a public meeting.
right.
Now, a non-public meeting, those minutes have to be available in 72 hours, even more quickly. But unless you seal them. So your non-public meeting minutes may be publicly available. I don't know, unless they're sealed.
We seal them at that meeting for that day.
And you should be reviewing whether you should be doing them. If there's settlement agreements, I have always argued, those shouldn't be sealed. You never used to seal those. What's the reason to seal a settlement? It's done.
It's discussion of a settlement, not so much the settlement. We're in discussion before the,
If you make a motion to accept the settlement, and it's done, that part is public. And that's the part, you're right, the negotiation part is not public, and you can keep that sealed forever. You're right.
what we're trying to do is go back to the non-public minutes, redact the stuff that we don't want to go out, and then we approve those non-public minutes for release. But we don't do it immediately. We do it on the next meeting. Now we're going back several meetings because,
Okay, you just started this practice,
right?
okay? This just started. This hasn't been what's been going on for 2.5 years. I've seen it be the other way. Nothing is unsealed.
We're not arguing that.
Okay, and you have to make if you're going to approve, when you start a meeting and you say, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? And you go, yes, the minutes are approved, then you've made a motion, and it shouldn't be for both sets. You should be distinguishing what are public and what are private.
We do two approvals, the public and the non-public.
Right.
But we we waive the reading of them, accept them and put them on file. They're still non-public. Then later, we go
Do you
through,
actually use the words, do you actually say, I approve the public and the non-public meeting minutes?
yes.
Okay.
We
and
do
you
two,
always said that?
yes, not the way you just said it. We do two separate approvals.
Okay. So, do you understand my point that you can't take those non-public meeting minutes and fold them into the other minutes as a combined document?
Why would we do that?
That's what you're doing. They're not posted separate. They're folded into your other public meeting minutes where the public can't find them.
a website issue, I think.
So that has to be sorted out.
I would assume there would be two listed, or two,
There should be. There should be.
Is
we'll
there-
look into it.
Are there any other members of the public waiting to comment? Gino, are you with us, or Director Kleiner?
Yes,
Is there
Chair,
any-
there appears to be one other member of the public who's not indicating she wishes to speak.
She does not wish to speak. Is that correct?
She is not indicating so.
Okay. All right. And comments by board members?
No.
All right, so is there a motion to go into non-public for two reasons? I'll read this with my glasses defogged. First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this body, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance, a tax abatement, a waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C, second, and 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical L, for the consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel either in writing or orally to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second that. I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Let the record show that we have entered non-public session at 9:26 a.m.